Hi learners, today we are going to be talking about pages 740 and 741 in your week 6 math packet. We are going over session 5, page 740 and 741. So please get that out and take notes along with this video, and then we'll discuss further in our Zoom video later today. So we are going to be working on classifying two-dimensional figures. Okay, we are going to use geometry words to describe the triangle that is talked about in the paragraph above here. But remember that we need to remember our geometry vocabulary words in order to use the correct words to describe this triangle. And so remember that a triangle can be described by both its sides and its angles. So this triangle has one angle that has an opening wider than a right angle. So that means the angle is larger than or wider than 90 degrees. This type of angle is an obtuse angle. Obtuse. The triangle has no sides that are the same length. So if I were to give an estimate on how long or give a unit for each of these sides, I could say this side is 10 inches, this side is 8, and this side is 5. That means that none of my sides are equal, and so that makes this triangle a scalene triangle. Scalene, remember, is when a triangle has no sides that are the same length. This was just a warm-up to get our mind thinking about the problems we are going to go over in our packet. So, moving on to this one, this one also is not in your packet, but we're just going to talk about it, and you guys can listen and take notes as much as you'd like. Nate and Alicia play Draw My Shape. Nate says, my shape has two pairs of parallel sides, two acute angles and two obtuse angles. Alicia draws the rectangle below. Explain why Alicia's answer is incorrect. So we need to remember what these words here mean. So parallel sides are sides that run the same direction and never cross. Acute angles are angles that are smaller than 90 degrees, and obtuse angles are angles that are larger than 90 degrees. Now our rectangle that Alicia drew has parallel sides here and parallel sides here. However, Nate said that his shape has two acute angles and two obtuse angles, and the rectangle that Alicia drew has all 90-degree angles. So why is Alicia's shape incorrect? Because she did not include the correct type of angles in her shape. A shape that would have two obtuse angles and two acute angles along with a pair of parallel sides could be a trapezoid. So number 2 in your packet, you are going to be taking notes along with this. So it's asking us to tell how the sides and angles of the shapes below are alike and how they are different. So let's start with the sides of our shape. The sides are alike because they run parallel to each other. So even though one is slanted and one runs up and down and side to side, both pairs of the sides in each of these shapes are parallel sides. The angles of the shape below are different, however, because this shape here has 2 obtuse angles and 2 acute angles. However, the square has all 90-degree angles. So, for example, you could write, the square and the rhombus have 2 pairs of parallel sides. The square has 4 right angles, and the rhombus has 2 acute angles and 2 obtuse angles. Number 3. Which is the best name for the triangle shown? So the first way that we are going to classify our triangle is by the angles. Okay, so we're going to look at these angles that this triangle has. It has 2 acute angles, but it also has 1 right angle. And remember, if a triangle has only 1 right angle, that makes it a right triangle. So we're going to eliminate A and B because they both say that the triangle is acute, and we know that the triangle is right. So C and D give us the options for right triangles. Now we need to look at the sides to determine which is the better classification for this triangle. We know that these 3 sides are not equal to each other. That means if you have 3 sides that are all different lengths, then that makes it a scalene triangle. So D is the correct answer. We know it's not isosceles because isosceles triangles have 2 sides that are equal, and our triangle above has no equal length sides. So Ricky chose B as the correct answer. How did he get that answer? Well, he was correct with the scalene because all the sides are different. And I understand why Ricky might have chosen acute because there are 2 acute angles in the triangle. However, remember that it only takes 1 right angle to classify a triangle as a right triangle versus an acute triangle. So from the options below, we are going to decide which is the best name for the group of shapes below. So A says that the shapes have acute angles. And however, this is true for some of our angles in these shapes. These are all acute there. Most of the angles are right angles, and so we probably couldn't classify these shapes all by their angles. So we're going to eliminate the acute angles because some of these shapes do not have acute angles. B says these shapes have right angles, which is true for a few of them. However, we do have 2 shapes here that do not have right angles, so that would not be the best classification either. C says shapes with parallel sides. Well, let's check this. This shape has parallel sides. Here's 1 pair. Here's the second pair. This shape has parallel sides. 1 pair. Here's the second pair. This shape also has parallel sides. There's the first pair, and this is the second pair. The square also has parallel sides. There's the first pair. Here's the second. And this also has parallel sides, 2 pairs. So this would be a great classification for these shapes because they all have parallel sides. We know that the perpendicular sides is untrue because perpendicular, this shape here and this shape here do not create perfectly perpendicular sides. Remember, perpendicular sides are 2 sides that create a right angle. Number 5 would like us to sort the 4 shapes below using the characteristics shown in the table. So we're going to draw each shape in each column where it belongs. Some shapes may belong in more than 1 column. The first column is asking us to draw the shapes that have at least one acute angle. So we're going to look at the equilateral triangle, and we can see that because these angles are less than 90 degrees, that they are acute angles. So the equilateral triangle belongs in the first column. The parallelogram also has at least one acute angle, so we're going to draw the parallelogram as well. The square, however, has all 90-degree angles, so that does not belong in the first column. The right trapezoid, it does have at least one acute angle right there. So this one also belongs in the first column. The second column is asking us to draw shapes with at least one pair of perpendicular sides. Remember, perpendicular sides are two sides that create a right angle. So we're looking for the shapes that have at least one right angle where two sides are creating that right angle. We can see here that the square has right angles, so we are going to draw the square. And the right trapezoid has two different right angles in it, and so the right trapezoid also belongs in this column. Finally, the last column is asking us to draw shapes with at least one pair of parallel sides. Remember, parallel sides are two sides that run in the same direction and never cross. So our equilateral triangle does not have any parallel sides because all of the sides eventually meet and cross. The parallelogram does have a pair of parallel sides. There's our first pair, and here's our second pair. Those two pair of parallel sides never cross, so this shape belongs in this column here. Okay, the square also has two pairs of parallel sides. Here's the first pair. Here is the second pair of parallel sides. So the square can also be drawn in this column. Finally, the right trapezoid also has one pair of parallel sides. The top and the bottom line or sides never cross. So that shape also can go into the third column.